Hotel World. It's your brother Matthew Daniels, aka Ampu, aka The Chosen Few, aka The Real Bookworm. I'm not a bookworm, I'm the real bookworm. Make sure you get it right. And y'all saw the title of this one. Today we're going to be talking about learning from your favorites. Yes, when you are trying to write a book and when you are trying to complete a novel, it's okay and it's actually a good idea to learn from some of your favorites. I'm going to tell you guys what I mean. Give me just a second. Okay, I'm going to tell you guys what I mean. I was struggling to complete one of my novels, right? I was struggling to complete one of my novels. Actually, the novel that just got released, Thicker Than Water. Okay, you can purchase Thicker Than Water now on Amazon.com. You can go to my website, www.TheRealBookWorm.com, www.TheRealBookWorm.com, and you can purchase that novel, Thicker Than Water. But when I was writing Thicker Than Water, I had the basic plot in my mind, and I knew how I wanted the story to go. I understood a lot of the major players, the main characters that I was going to put in the book. I understood what elements of plot twist that I wanted to use. I understood how to make a setting, okay? And I had written several books prior to writing Thicker Than Water. So I was familiar and comfortable with the process, with the book writing process. But for some reason, when I was trying to get that story out of my mind and onto paper, right, so I could get it into print, I was hitting a lot of roadblocks. And since I just was able to get that book published here recently, it brought that struggle back to my mind, and I felt like that would be a good topic for me to talk about today in this series that I'm creating about helping an individual write their book, helping you guys start and finish your novel. Okay, what do you do when you have the characters, you have the setting, you have the plot, you have the story in your head, but you just don't know how you want to deliver it? You know, you don't know how to actually get it down on paper. You don't know how to start, where to start, because one thing you want to realize whenever you're writing a book, you are talking about characters. So you have several moments in the characters' lives when you can actually start the book. Do you begin the book while your main character is at work one day and something that happens at work kind of pushes the story forward? Or do you start the story when they wake up in the morning to get dressed to go to work? Do you start the story when they get off from work? If at some point in your story, in the ideas you have in your mind, if at some point that character is going to lose their job, do you begin the story when they lost their job, and as the story progresses, you segue into flashbacks to when they had a job, and then you decide to talk about the job? You understand what I'm saying? Sometimes it can be very, very difficult to figure out at what point you want to start the story and how you want to push the story forward, because the story has to be pushed forward with the scenes. Things in the book have to be unfolding to the ultimate point of the book. And so what I want you to think about is you need to learn how to learn from your favorites. Okay, who do you like to read? I'm going to tell you one of my favorite authors is Dan Brown. Okay, one of my all-time favorite authors is Dan Brown. And the first book, the first Dan Brown book I ever read was The Da Vinci Code. Now, if any of you are into reading, if any of you are into novels, if you know about Dan Brown, you know that he's written several books, and he wrote several books before the Da Vinci Code came out. But the Da Vinci Code it took him to rock star status. You know, it took him to rock star status. Okay, and it was actually when I got my hands on the Da Vinci Code that it assisted me in writing Thicker Than Water. I'm going to tell you what happened. I was struggling writing Thicker Than Water, so I took a break from the actual novel. I had started it maybe 3 times, and I didn't like how the first couple of chapters were flowing, so I put the book to the side, and I was like, nah, I don't want to start it like that. It's not flowing how it's supposed to be. You know, I wanted it to be action-packed, thrill ride. Okay, and so what I did, I took a break from writing and I just started to read. I was like, you know what, I'm just going to start reading books, and I took the advice that I'm giving you now. I'm just going to try to learn from my favorite authors. Now, at the time, Dan Brown wasn't one of my favorite authors, but I had heard a lot of good things about the Da Vinci Code. So I got my hands on the Da Vinci Code and I read it, and it blew me away. That was one of the best books I have ever read in my life. Now, what you have to understand, a lot of the controversy surrounding the Da Vinci Code was a group of individuals, researchers and writers, who wrote a book called The Holy Grail, right? And they were claiming that Dan Brown had stole their book idea, The Holy Grail, and he wrote Thicker Than Water. And so it was a real big thing. They took him to court. They tried to sue him for, you know, like copyright infringement, stealing their ideas. He eventually won, but this was the crux of the matter. This was the issue. Holy Blood, Holy Grail, that's the title of the book. I'm sorry. Holy Blood, Holy Grail was more like a research-based book. They were presenting the idea that Jesus from the Bible was married to Mary Magdalene, and not only was Jesus married to Mary Magdalene, they had a child. And a lot of people always talk about the Holy Grail. And when people talk about the Holy Grail, they usually are talking about a chalice or a cup that they say once contained the blood of Jesus, and it had mystical, magical powers because it contained the blood of Jesus. And so what happened was, they were saying that the actual Holy Grail was the womb of Mary Magdalene because it held the holy blood. The holy blood being the blood within the child that was the blood of Jesus. And they were saying that it was a group of individuals that were direct descendants of Jesus today. And so they went into a lot of historical details, okay, to validate why they were making that point. Now, if you never read Holy Blood, Holy Grail, that's the gist of it. And so if you've ever read the Da Vinci Code, a lot of that sounds familiar. Now, if you've never read the Da Vinci Code is about a fictional character who's a symbologist and a professor, right? A college professor, and his name is Robert Langdon. Now, in the book, Robert Langdon is, and I don't want to go too deep into the book, but the whole concept of the Da Vinci Code was things were unfolding, mystery was unfolding, some killers were being chased down, and he was finding clues and solving riddles and solving puzzles, and everywhere along the way he was uncovering information that was revealing that it was a secret that the church had hid for thousands of years, that Jesus was actually married to Mary Magdalene, and that they actually had a child together, and that descendants from that child of Jesus was still alive right now today. And so a lot of the historical information that was in Holy Blood, Holy Grail, a lot of that historical information could be found in the Da Vinci Code. But how Dan Brown did it, he wrote it in a fictional way with a fictional character that solved problems, and you know, he saw the secret codes inside of the paintings of Leonardo da Vinci that was revealing the truth, that was hidden in plain sight, that was telling the truth about what the Holy Grail really was. Okay, and so it was an action-packed thrill ride. You know, they were chasing down killers, they were running from their life, they were uncovering ancient secret orders, and they were solving riddles and solving puzzles and cracking codes. And I mean, it was a literal non-stop thrill ride. And what made it even better is the fictional story was weaved into reality in such a way it felt a lot more plausible. And he did such a good job of that the authors of Holy Blood, Holy Grail wanted to sue him. And it was like, bro, you took our research, you took our investigation, you took our story. But Dan Brown won. He won his case. He did nothing wrong. He can talk about anything historical that he wants to, and if he wants to put that in a fictional light, he can. Okay. And so when I read that, right, I was like, bingo, a light bulb went off. I learned from my new favorite author, because I was able to see how he laid out his book, The Da Vinci Code, and I now had a template for Thicker Than Water. Because Thicker Than Water, it's about a gang war that erupts on the streets of Texas City. And so there are people going around committing murders for the head guys. It's two major criminal organizations, the Dromicide Hooligans and the South Lane Villains, right? And so they have individuals going out committing murders for them. But what I wanted to do, while those individuals are definitely main characters, I really wanted to incorporate more so the perspective of the detective that was chasing them, the detective that was trying to chase down the killer, and the detective that was trying to find out, well, why did this gang war start, and the detective that was trying to figure out how can he stop this war. So in Thicker Than Water, you're going to see they're chasing down, you know, the detective and another officer, a rookie officer who wants to be a detective as well. They're chasing down killers. They're dodging bullets. There's high speed chases. They're having to crack codes, and they're having to track leads and open up old case files to try to figure out why did the truths get broke, what is really going on, who can trust who's doing the killings, who's orchestrating all of this mayhem that's going on, what is happening, right? And Thicker Than Water is written in such a way that it is a non-stop thrill ride. Okay, it is a non-stop thrill ride, and just that whole concept, right? Because what I did in Thicker Than Water, I used a lot of names of individuals that I know and places that I actually know right here in Texas City. And I used the general idea that is not real in the book, but it's a reality of life, right? Sometimes gangs go to war with one another. Sometimes people do get murdered, and detectives, they have to try to figure out who is committing the homicides. They have to try to figure out what is the motive behind the homicide. Who did it? Did somebody, is it a hit for hire? Did somebody pay you to do that? Right? But I also incorporated where they have to solve riddles and solve puzzles and chase clues and crack codes. Okay, it's not just a straightforward to where the detective finds a fingerprint and they are able to say, oh, okay, I got a fingerprint, this is the killer, let me go pick them up. No, it's not like that. They have to, you know, go to the library and pull up old records to see pull up old news stories, and now with this new thing that's going on, this news story that ran in the newspaper 15 years later, I'm sorry, 2 years ago, 5 years ago, about a murder that didn't seem connected in any way that is, now is it all starting to make sense. It all starting to seem connected, and as they uncover more clues, and as the story goes further and further and further, they start realizing the things that are seemingly random at first start to make sense. And so Thicker Than Water has turned out to be one of my best books thus far. And I implemented a simple tool that I'm telling you about now. Learn from your favorites. There's no shame in that. It's actually a smart idea. Like, I got several Dan Brown books. This is Dan Brown, the Lost Symbol, right? I haven't read this one yet. Dan Brown, the Lost Symbol, and Dan Brown Origin. I'm reading Origin right now. He has the Da Vinci Code, Angels and Demons. He has another one. I think it's called Deception Point. Digital Fortress. He has several books, and when I get through with Origin, I'm gonna read the Lost Symbol. Okay, mommy will be back in a little bit. Go play, daddy doing something. And so after I read the Lost Symbol, I'm gonna go get another one of Dan Brown books, and I'm gonna read that. But what I want to tell you guys is, if you're at a point where you're having problems and you're struggling with how to construct your story, right? How do you want it to play out? Because there's different vibes to different types of books. If one book is a romance, and one book is a horror, and one book is a murder mystery, the tempo of the books are going to be different. So if in your mind, if you have an idea for a dynamic romance novel, think about one of your favorite authors that write romance novels. Buy one of their books, read their book. And as you read it for entertainment, but also read it for insight. Try to feel the tempo of the actual book. How many chapters is it before these two characters that eventually are going to fall in love meet each other? Do they meet each other immediately, and then just over time they meet each other more and more and more, and then finally it's like, oh man, I keep seeing you everywhere, and you look good, and every time I see you, I'm thinking about you for the rest of the day. Can I take you out? And then they start dating, right? Read a romance novel, and maybe in the romance novel that you read, an individual is heartbroken, and so they start going to some kind of that they're heartbroken, and they start drinking themselves and drinking heavy to try to get away from the pain. So they start going to an AA meeting, and then maybe the individual that they're going to fall in love with had a similar bad experience, and they started drinking heavy, and they meet each other at the AA meeting. Right? Maybe they meet each other in some type of, because maybe you want to have action in your romance novel as well. Maybe they meet each other in some kind of tragedy. Maybe they're on a plane, right? And the plane gets hijacked, and so they're on this plane for several hours together, and just being on that plane hijacked, they're on there for several hours. They're thinking that they're not going to make it, and they're talking to each other off and on while the FBI is trying to solve the problem. And then later on now they have a bond. Maybe their children play for the same softball team. Maybe their children play for the same football, basketball team. It's countless different ways that you can go with this. Maybe they work together. Maybe one person is going through a bad time in their life, and they lose their job that they've had for the past 15 years, and they get a new job, and when they get to this new job, they meet that individual. See, it's things like that, like various ideas for scenarios. Hello? Yeah, I'm trying. Let me finish this video real quick. I just need 2 minutes. I'm gonna be out there. I'm gonna be out there. Yeah, I'm gonna be out there. Yeah. And so, like with me, I come up with these scenarios pretty fluidly at this point, because I have a whole lot of ideas in my mind, and whenever I see good ideas, I automatically lock them in and I store them. And I'm pretty good at thinking of these things to tell you guys off the fly. But if you're having problems with understanding and coming up with a way that you can begin your story and have it flow, read one of your favorite authors and read a book that's the style of book that you are trying to read, and you can get a whole lot of insight. You can learn a lot from somebody else who's already done it. So I don't want to make this video too long. I just wanted to tell you guys that, give y'all that little bit of information. Learn from your favorites. It's okay to learn from your favorites. I've done it, and it worked out. It worked out good for me. I'm not ashamed to say it. I was able to successfully complete Thicker Than Water after I read the Da Vinci Code. So, you know, Dan Brown will ever be one of my favorites, because, you know, he helped me get over that hump, and he didn't even know it. If you would like to talk about this topic, learn from your favorites a little more, just go to my website, www.TheRealBookWorm.com. You know, send me a message, reach out to me, and I'm gonna respond. You can also go to my website and watch any of the other videos that I've dropped in this series of how to write a book, and just look at the titles, and if the title is something that you're struggling with, watch the video, and hopefully I can help you. And if you want me to expound on any of those topics, you watch the video, it touched you, but you wanted to ask me some questions directly, just go to the contact section on the website, www.TheRealBookWorm.com, and send me a message. Also, I have 2 books already published. Suicide Note by Matthew Daniels. You can get that on Amazon. You can get that on the website. And Thicker Than Water by Matthew Daniels. You can get that on Amazon.com. You can get that on the website. Show your support. Get those books and write your own book and get your literature published. Remember, anybody can write. You just need the tools to do it. And I want to help you get those tools and successfully create your literature. This your brother Matthew Daniels, aka Ampool, aka The Chosen Few, aka The Real Bookworm. I'm not a bookworm, I'm the real bookworm. Make sure you get it right. And as always, world, may your name live on forever, and may your memory never die. Hotel.